in the upscale suburban enclave of Willow Creek Estates, where manicured lawns and sparkling fountains defined the landscape, life had always been predictable until the Homeowners Association, HOA, decided to flex its financial muscle. For years, Emma Carter had lived peacefully in her modest but charming home, paying a reasonable $980 monthly HOA fee that covered basic amenities like landscaping, security, and communal maintenance. But one crisp autumn morning, Emma received a letter from the HOA that made her blood run cold. Her fees were being tripled to an astronomical $3,020 per month, effective immediately. The justification provided by the HOA president, Richard Langston, a slick, self-assured man known for his love of luxury and disdain for dissent, was vague at best. According to Richard, the increase was necessary to fund critical infrastructure upgrades and enhance community aesthetics. However, no detailed breakdown accompanied the announcement, leaving residents like Emma suspicious about where their money would actually go. When Emma attended the next HOA meeting to demand answers, she was met with condescension rather than clarity. Richard dismissed her concerns with a wave of his hand, insisting that the fee hike was non-negotiable and accusing anyone who questioned it of being resistant to progress. Emma wasn't convinced. She dug deeper, reviewing past HOA budgets and discovering discrepancies that raised red flags. Funds earmarked for repairs had mysteriously vanished, while extravagant expenses, like gold-plated fixtures for the clubhouse bathroom and unnecessary landscaping overhauls, had skyrocketed. It became clear to Emma that this wasn't about improving the neighborhood. It was about lining the pockets of Richard and his inner circle. Furious but determined, Emma rallied her neighbors, many of whom were equally outraged but too intimidated to speak up. Together, they drafted petitions, organized protests, and even reached out to local media outlets to expose the corruption within the HOA. Yet Richard remained unfazed, confident that his connections and influence would shield him from accountability. In fact, he retaliated against Emma personally, singling her out as a troublemaker and threatening legal action if she continued challenging the board's decisions. But what Richard didn't know was that Emma wasn't just another frustrated homeowner. She was a certified forensic auditor with years of experience uncovering financial misconduct. Her expertise lay in dissecting complex ledgers, identifying irregularities, and presenting irrefutable evidence in court. What started as a personal fight against unfair fees quickly evolved into something much bigger. Emma saw an opportunity not only to hold Richard accountable, but also to overhaul the broken system that allowed such abuses to thrive. Armed with spreadsheets, receipts, and subpoenaed bank records, Emma began piecing together a damning case against the HOA leadership. Every transaction told a story, and the narrative emerging was one of greed, mismanagement, and betrayal of trust. As she prepared to present her findings to both the HOA board and state regulators, Emma felt a mix of anger and determination. This wasn't just about saving herself or her neighbors from financial ruin. It was about restoring integrity to a community that deserved better. When Emma finally confronted Richard during a tense HOA meeting, she laid out her evidence with surgical precision, exposing how millions of dollars had been siphoned off under the guise of community improvements. The room fell silent as residents absorbed the magnitude of the scandal. Richard, pale and sweating, stammered denials that crumbled under the weight of irrefutable proof. For the first time, Emma saw fear flicker across his face, a fear that justice might finally catch up to him. With public opinion firmly on her side and mounting pressure from state authorities, Emma knew the battle was far from over. But one thing was certain: Richard and his cronies had underestimated her. And now, they were about to learn exactly who they were dealing with. Emma Carter's transformation from a quiet homeowner to a relentless advocate for transparency reached its crescendo when she was appointed as the interim auditor of Willow Creek Estates HOA, a move orchestrated by outraged residents who demanded accountability. Richard Langston, still reeling from Emma's explosive revelations at the previous meeting, tried to block her appointment, claiming it would create conflict of interest. But his protests fell flat in the face of overwhelming support from the community. With a unanimous vote, Emma officially took on the role, armed with legal authority to scrutinize every financial record, invoice, and transaction tied to the HOA. What followed was nothing short of a forensic deep dive into years of unchecked spending. Working late nights at her dining table surrounded by stacks of documents, Emma uncovered a web of corruption so intricate it bordered on audacious. Funds meant for essential repairs have been funneled into lavish personal expenses. $50,000 for custom furniture in the clubhouse lounge, $75,000 for imported marble countertops in the poolside cabana, and even $12,000 for Richard's daughter's wedding reception, all billed under vague categories like community enhancement or miscellaneous operational costs. But the most egregious discovery came when Emma traced payments to a shell company registered to none other than Richard himself. Under the guise of contracting work for landscaping and maintenance, he had siphoned off hundreds of thousands of dollars annually, paying inflated rates to subcontractors, many of whom were fictitious, while pocketing the difference. It was a textbook case of embezzlement, meticulously hidden behind layers of obfuscation. Until now, as Emma compiled her findings into a comprehensive report, she ensured every detail was irrefutable. She cross-referenced invoices with bank statements, verified contractor licenses, or lack thereof, and flagged anomalies that painted a damning picture of systemic fraud. When she presented her audit to the HOA board during an emergency session, the room erupted in chaos. Board members who had blindly supported Richard began distancing themselves, some visibly shaken by the extent of the corruption they had unwittingly enabled. Others scrambled to defend themselves, insisting they had been kept in the dark. Richard, predictably, lashed out. He accused Emma of fabricating evidence, questioned her motives, and even attempted to discredit her professional credentials. But his attempt at deflection only backfired. State regulators, alerted by Emma's preliminary findings, launched their own investigation, subpoenaing additional records and freezing HOA assets pending further review. Local news outlets picked up the story, dubbing it the Great HOA Heist, and plastering Richard's smug face across headlines nationwide. Public outrage reached a fever pitch. Residents held rallies outside the HOA offices, demanding Richard's resignation and full restitution of misappropriated funds. Social media campaigns mocking his greed went viral, with hashtags like hashtag HOA scam and hashtag Richard the Thief trending for days. Even late-night comedians couldn't resist poking fun at the scandal, further humiliating him. For once, Richard found himself utterly alone, abandoned by allies, vilified by neighbors, and facing mounting legal challenges. Yet Emma didn't stop there. Recognizing the broader implications of her fight, she partnered with advocacy groups to push for reforms aimed at preventing similar abuses elsewhere. She helped draft legislation requiring stricter oversight of HOAs, including mandatory third-party audits, transparent budgeting processes, and harsh penalties for misconduct. Dubbed the Homeowners Financial Transparency Act, the proposal gained traction quickly, earning endorsements from lawmakers eager to address long-standing grievances. Town hall meetings drew record attendance, with residents expressing relief that someone was finally tackling issues they'd silently endured for years. In Willow Creek Estates itself, Emma spearheaded initiatives designed to rebuild trust and restore fiscal responsibility. She established a community oversight committee comprising independent experts and volunteer residents to monitor future expenditures. Monthly financial reports were made publicly available online, ensuring transparency and accountability. These efforts paid off almost immediately. Confidence in the HOA rebounded, membership dues stabilized, and a renewed spirit of collaboration filled the air. Even skeptics who had initially dismissed Emma's crusade as futile began participating, realizing that unity benefited everyone. Meanwhile, Richard faced increasingly dire consequences. State prosecutors charged him with multiple counts of embezzlement, fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Facing the prospect of prison time and hefty fines, he resigned from his position as HOA president in disgrace. His once immaculate mansion stood empty, foreclosed after failing to cover mounting legal fees. By the time the final verdict came down, guilty on all charges, Richard was a shadow of his former self, reduced to selling off assets just to stay afloat. For Emma, the victory was bittersweet, but deeply satisfying. Yes, the road had been long and fraught with resistance, but through perseverance, she had not only exposed corruption, but also empowered her community to take control of its future. As she addressed a packed town hall meeting following the trial, flanked by supportive neighbors, she emphasized that the fight wasn't about revenge. It was about justice. "This isn't just about holding Richard accountable," she said firmly. "It's about ensuring no one else has to endure what we've been through. Together, we can build something better. Would you like to continue to the next key point?" With Richard Langston's downfall and the HOA scandal fully exposed, Willow Creek Estates entered a transformative phase, one defined by transparency, collaboration, and renewed purpose. The community that had once been divided by greed and mistrust now stood united, determined to rebuild not just its finances, but also its spirit. At the heart of this transformation was Emma Carter, whose relentless pursuit of justice had ignited a movement far greater than anyone could have anticipated. Emma's role as interim auditor evolved into something more permanent. She became a trusted leader within the neighborhood, guiding reforms and fostering a culture of accountability. Under her watchful eye, the HOA implemented sweeping changes designed to prevent future abuses. Monthly financial statements were posted online for all residents to review, complete with itemized breakdowns of expenditures. Independent auditors were brought in annually to ensure compliance, while whistleblower protections were established to encourage reporting of suspicious activity. These measures weren't just about restoring trust. They were about setting a standard for ethical governance. The Community Oversight Committee Emma helped establish quickly became a cornerstone of Willow Creek Estate's new identity. Comprised of diverse voices, including former critics of Emma's crusade, the group worked tirelessly to prioritize projects that truly benefited everyone. Gone were the days of frivolous spending on gold-plated fixtures. Instead, funds were allocated toward meaningful improvements like energy-efficient lighting, expanded green spaces, and upgraded security systems. Residents noticed a difference almost immediately. Streets felt safer, parks more inviting, and communal areas more vibrant. For many, it was a reminder of what made Willow Creek Estate special in the first place, a place where people came together to create something beautiful. Perhaps most remarkably, Emma's efforts inspired a wave of civic engagement across the broader region. News of her success spread beyond Willow Creek Estates, prompting other communities to demand similar reforms within their own HOAs. Advocacy groups formed, sharing resources and strategies for combating corruption. Lawmakers took notice, introducing legislation modeled after Emma's Homeowners Financial Transparency Act at both state and national levels. What had started as a personal fight against unfair fees blossomed into a nationwide push for change, an enduring legacy of Emma's courage and determination. For Richard, the aftermath of the scandal was bleak. Stripped of his wealth, reputation, and influence, he faded into obscurity, a cautionary tale of hubris and entitlement. Yet even in his absence, his actions served as a powerful reminder of the dangers posed by unchecked power. During a reflective town hall meeting months later, Emma addressed the crowd, urging them to remain vigilant. "We've come so far," she said, her voice steady but warm. "But we can't let our guard down. Accountability isn't a one-time fix. It's an ongoing commitment." As the community celebrated its progress, small acts of kindness and cooperation began to define daily life in Willow Creek Estates. Neighbors who had once avoided each other now exchanged greetings over backyard fences. Children played freely in newly renovated parks, their laughter echoing through tree-lined streets. And at the center of it all stood Emma's home, a modest yet welcoming space that symbolized resilience, unity, and the triumph of ordinary people standing up to extraordinary corruption. Reflecting on everything that had transpired, Emma felt a profound sense of fulfillment. Yes, the journey had been arduous, filled with moments of doubt and frustration, but it had also revealed the strength of community, the beauty of second chances, and the enduring power of standing firm in the face of injustice. As she sat on her porch one crisp autumn evening, watching the sun dip below the horizon, she smiled softly. The battle may have ended, but the story was far from over. Together, they had embarked on a new chapter, one rooted in hope, harmony, and the unshakable belief that home is more than walls and roofs. It's a place where hearts find belonging and dreams take flight.